Good morning. Good morning. A little frosty out there, isn't it? Thanks for being here today. Welcome to Horizon Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Pam Schumann. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm serving as your worship associate this lovely cold morning, and I'm joined by our worship leader, Reverend Chris Rothbauer, whose pronouns are they, them, their. We are excited to welcome you to our worship service this morning. We're so glad to have you with us today, whether you're joining us in person or virtually, whether you've been here for the first time or whether you've been here for longer than you can remember. Here at Horizon, we welcome people of all faiths and of no faith in particular. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome among us. As a community, we also welcome the sharing of joys and sorrows and concerns. You are welcome to fill out a joys and sorrows slip on the table near the Welcome Center when you came in the pockets of the chairs, and on the joys and sorrows table right here on the table. And you're also welcome to light a candle. And this can be done at any time before the service or in service from the beginning through the offertory.
A quick announcement before we get started. I'm sure most of you have heard that there's the very distinct possibility of weather happening tonight and tomorrow. The church office is already closed tomorrow because of Martin Luther King Day, so don't worry about your staff. We're going to be home warm in bed. The more complicated part is Tuesday, and if you wake up and Carrollton and Farmers Branch ISD have canceled services on Tuesday, all the office and all events at Horizon, including Nina Haldridge's memorial service, will be canceled that day. We'll also be assessing even if the Carrollton and Farmers Branch ISD decide to open and we still think it's too slippery, especially given some of us are coming from very far, we might still cancel. I will send out an all-church email if we decide to cancel. If you hear nothing by very early Tuesday morning, we're planning to go ahead with the memorial as normal at 10 o'clock. But I encourage everyone to exercise your own judgment. Things might be different where you're living, especially if you're coming from afar. We want you to be safe. No hospital visitations this week, please. Our call to worship this morning is from Sharon Wiley. It is said that ministers are here to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I say we are all afflicted and we are all comfortable. May our time together this morning be a comfort and a confrontation. May we here find peace in times of tumult. May we here invite tumult into lives of peace. May we here find calm in times of restlessness. May we here allow restlessness to evolve into action. Let this be the place you consider what you've never considered. Let this be the place you imagine for yourself something new and unthinkable. May this hour bring dreams of new ways of being in the world. Come, let us worship together.
Our chalice lighting this morning is from Margot Reinhardt. May this chalice bring us to the precipice of truth, where nothing can be hidden from the flame. And may we find the reckoning place where our souls burst open and into the liberating light. Please join me now in our affirmation, which is printed on the back of your order of service and projected on the screen. Love is the doctrine of our church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in harmony with the earth. Thus do we covenant together. And now I invite you to rise, either in body or spirit, and join us in singing our opening hymn, hymn 131 in the gray hymnal, Love Will Guide Us.
Horizon works to make a difference in our community by supporting MetroCrest services. One way you can help MetroCrest is by bringing items to Horizon each Sunday for the MetroCrest pantry, like cans and boxes of shelf-stable foods, toiletries like shampoo and menstrual hygiene products, and items for babies such as diapers and wipes. If you have brought donations for MetroCrest today, please pass them down to the end of the aisle, and our children will collect them and put them in the basket up front. At this time, I'd like to invite our young people and young at heart down to the front for a time for all ages. All right, thank you for coming up front. So we have been talking lately about our religion is considering adding to our 8 principles with a new set of UU values, values that will help lead us so we can better live in and serve today's world. One of those values is love. In fact, our faith sees love as such an important value of our religion that we have made sure to not only lift it up by name, but also place it in the center of our newly proposed values. We have placed love at the center of our faith to remind us and hold up the idea that we are building on the foundation of love. So, with that in mind, I have 2 things I brought today. One is a heart. It's a heart magnet. It has a magnet at the back, and it's a heart at the front. Got me? Okay. The heart magnet reminds us that our UU faith doesn't just live up comforting love, but it also lifts up and affirms liberating love. So let me explain what I mean. If we pretend it's just a regular heart, just for a moment, it can remind us of hugs. Who likes hugs? I love to get hugs. Hugs and cuddles and smiles and high fives. High five? High fives are nice. From friends and family. These are all examples of comforting love, the kind of love that makes us feel good and safe. Now, let's imagine for a moment that it's just a magnet. And on the back, it's a magnet. What does a magnet do? Who knows what a magnet does? Yes. Yep, it sticks on things, right? Pulls things toward it. So our heart magnet, our heart, yes?
It's a positive charge.
Very good.
If it's a negative charge, it does not stick.
We have very smart kids. Okay, so magnets pull things toward us. So our heart magnet represents a love that pulls us towards other people and into the world to help them liberate or free themselves from sadness, pain, or injustice. So this reminds me of a story. That's my signal to change the slide. All right. One day, as a villager began his early morning stroll, he noticed that the once beautiful river looked murky and had pollution resting on its banks. The villager quickly went out of his way to clear the pollution. He thought all was well. But the next day, the same villager noticed 2 lifeless fish in the river. He scooped them out of the waters and again thought all was well. This happened day after day. Old tires, plastic bottles, and other trash kept appearing in the river along with dead fish. Cleanup squads were soon working 24 hours a day to keep up with the increase in pollution, and the villagers felt that they were doing well in cleaning up as much as they could. One day, however, a young girl was playing by the riverside and saw the pollution. She looked off in the distance and then turned to her grandfather and asked, "Where's all this waste coming from?" Her grandfather shrugged his shoulders and said, "Oh, upriver somewhere, I guess." The little girl responded, "Well, let's organize a team to head upstream and find out who's throwing all this trash into the river in the first place." They brought this idea to the village elders, who came up with excuses why this wouldn't work. "Oh, it's too complicated," they said. The girl countered, "But you don't see, if we find out who's polluting the river, then we can stop the problem, and the fish won't die." Well, several days later, the young girl decided to go upstream herself to find the source of the corruption. Upstream, she found a mountain of plastic from the building of a nearby village that was releasing chemicals and trash into the river. The girl smiled to herself and began to remove as much as she could. And as she dealt with the source of the pollution upstream, the river downstream returned to normal, much to the joy of the other villagers. So thank you for listening to our story today, and let's sing the children out.
Once upon a time, most folks used the offering plate to fulfill their pledges of financial support. Nowadays, lots of folks click on their church websites or set up automatic transfers from their checking accounts. Some still write a monthly check, paying their church bill along with all the others. But passing the offering plate was never just a practical exercise. It has always been a ritual. Even if your pledge is paid up, it is worthwhile for you to bring even just $1 to drop into the plate as a ritual reminder of that form of love we call generosity. Let it be a reminder that after meeting our obligations to ourselves and our households and the communities to which we belong and are committed, we must still keep our capacity to give. The practice of giving until it is second nature and first response helps bring forth the realm of love. Thank you to all our members and friends who give and pledge electronically. If you would like to give electronically, you may do so on the Breeze app or online at horizonuu.org/donate. The offering will now be joyfully given and received. Thank you for your generosity. Our first reading today is from Tess Baumberger, based on 1 Corinthians. Love is kind with people, but impatient with injustice. Love is assertive and respectful. Love listens to the anger of those who experience oppression, without responding, without defending, without interrupting, without explaining. It listens with compassion, seeking always to understand. Love is slow to anger, especially at the start or end of life, and with anyone who the world discounts. Yet anger can be a part of love. Consider the force with which parents defend their young. Love fears for those it loves, for what it loves, and when who or what it loves cannot defend itself, love rises to defend. When those it loves have the power of defense, it takes their lead with humility and courage. Love assists, empowers, and frees. Love rises to meet injustice in considered ways that help correct it. Love is willing to examine itself, its thoughts, actions, and unmeditated bias. It recognizes one's power to harm or to be part of systems of harm, with or without awareness. But once aware, it can only intend to make amends, to right the wrongs, to change the systems that legislate hatred. Love is always willing to change, always to learn, always to heal. Love rejoices in truth and in equity. There is no limit to love's steady presence, or its holding us gently but insistently to what is right.
A little bit of confession this morning. When I first saw that the theme for January was Liberating Love, I thought, what in the world are So Matters doing? Isn't love a February theme? And it didn't help that February's theme is justice and equity, which feels more like a January theme to me. I must confess that there was a point which I thought, maybe I should switch things up if I can. And I didn't look forward to talking about love this month. I even vented these frustrations to a few people at church, and a few agreed with me that this theme would have been much more appropriate next month. But then someone challenged me. What would Martin Luther King have to say about the theme of love? After all, we celebrate his life and legacy in the month of January, tomorrow, in fact. So maybe it might be a good opportunity to look at the loving King. So this was the prompt that I needed. And I looked it up. What did Martin Luther King have to say about love? And it turns out he had a lot to say about it. Love is the greatest force in the universe, he said in a handwritten note written sometime in the mid-1960s when someone had asked King what he thought of the subject. It is the heartbeat of the moral cosmos. He who loves is a participant in the being of God. That's a mighty powerful statement, isn't it? And to fully grasp the significance of it, one needs to know that, like many progressive Christians, King was a process theologian, a person who believed that God isn't just something we sit around and wait on to happen. Instead, process theologians take seriously the old cliche that God helps those who help themselves. What we must do, a process theologian would say, is to work to create the world we want to see on a daily basis. This is the way to bring God in the world, they say. not through conversion or guilt or shame or begging, but by actively doing the things we must do to make the realm of God a reality, not just in the hereafter, but in the here and now, to create the world we dream of today, not when we die. In other words, a process theologian, as some have said, would see God as a verb, not a noun. Right action rather than right knowing, rather than a sense of an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present being. For King, then, the way to bring more of God into the world, he thought, was through love, being willing to participate in the unfolding of creating a more loving and just universe. He believed that love was already at the heart of all that exists. The moral imperative, then, was to behave as if love truly matters in how we live our lives, to express as much love as we can with as many people as possible. This was not some sterile love either that excused the wrongdoings of others in favor of simply loving for love's sake or letting people be. Anyone who's taken the time to read much of King's writing beyond the I Have a Dream speech will know he was a frequent critic of those who committed injustice. From the inhumanity of racial segregation to the economic inequality that kept many people of all races poor, and the horrors of the Vietnam War that saw so many lives uselessly snubbed out in the blink of an eye on both sides. No, King was not one to excuse these injustices simply to keep the peace or in some misguided show of political tolerance. King spoke up against these injustices precisely because he did believe in love, because he saw so many being wronged in the system we all live in and loved them so much that he wanted to see them free to live their full potential. Love taught him to voice what he knew was right and be a force for good in the world. More than this, though, he realized that if he didn't speak up, he was allowing those who would oppress to believe that their actions were morally justified. The oppressed must never allow the conscience of the oppressor to slumber, he said. To accept injustice or segregation passively is to say to the oppressor that his actions are morally right. In other words, we must be willing to sting each other's conscience so that they may return to love themselves, the power that can liberate from the hate, anger, and fear to which they've succumbed. This is what I hear when I hear the words liberating love. Love is more than a sentimentality that plays out in pubescent love quests or Valentine's Day cards. Love is a force that can transform people from enemy to friend and help us participate in the sacred art of justice seeking, to push us towards a different way of being that ensures everyone has what they need, not just to survive, but to thrive. I will confess that this is a difficult standard to live up to, and I'm sure King would have admitted that he wasn't able to do it all the time either. Yet it's one that all the world's major religions proclaim every time they give their version of the golden rule and remind us that loving others as we would have them love us can be a powerful antidote to the politics of division that seek to keep people constantly in conflict and in isolation. I know this firsthand. As many of you know, I grew up in a very conservative evangelical home, one where I was taught to hate on a daily basis, especially myself. It was the power of friends who love me for reasons I still don't understand, who allowed me the space to eventually be liberated, to find my own peace and my own direction in life. And if not for them, I might not be here right now. So maybe liberating love is a good theme for the month of January. I have long admired Dr. King because of the stunning rebuke he gave to the status quo and the way he continues to inspire many to be better people. But make no mistake, his words are hard to live up to. In this day and age, when we are once again at the crossroads between freedom and fascism, what does it mean to live into an ethic of love, to find a way to make love more than a sentiment, but a guide for our lives? We take time to honor the sorrows and joys of this community, knowing we are all interconnected, and what affects one affects us all. Rusty shares a joy for Josh for thank you for helping us clean the first row of chairs. And Rusty also shares a joy for Rick Limpetti for thank you for repairing the ceilings in the sanctuary and kitchen. And believe me, when I came in, he made sure I looked up in case I hadn't seen it yet. Elaine McMillan shares, I have moved to assisted living at Briarview. Maya shares that I'm moving to Disney World on Saturday. Oh boy, take us with you. I'm sad to leave my friends, especially choir and family, but excited for my new adventure. Ari Mulford shares a sorrow for their grandfather, Hugh, who has entered hospice care. And we light a candle this morning to honor all the joys and sorrows which have gone unspoken and reside only in our hearts. Please join me in the spirit of prayer or meditation in whatever way feels right with these words from Erica A. Hewitt. After the reading, we'll have a space of silence, which will be broken by our responsive hymn, number 1009 in the Teal Hymnal, Meditation on Breathing. Spirit of life, I have witnessed a loud love, an out loud love that challenges me. I did not recognize it at first, the rumble of an ocean I had long been under. But here it is right now, and it looks just like the whole world could be. It doesn't play nice. Why should it? When nice has only ever played it a lullaby. This love demands a love so loud that it lays rocks at the feet of children who can't find their path home, across the pipeline, any other way. This love is indifferent to tolerance. It invites you into your own heart where God loves self has come to take tea with you. Drink and know that like that other love, this love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Perseveres. This out loud love makes no secret of its aim to get you free, but first sets fires, throw the poison to the ground, match the love sound for sound. Spirit of love, come and bring everyone. We're giving birth to something new. Blessed be.
Our second reading today comes from Rosemary Watola Traumer. It is called On a Day When the World Has Its Way with Me. Like every other day, today, it is apparent that only love will save us, not in the grandiose, abstract way, but in the alarming, specific way, as in forgiveness now, as in choosing to hug instead of fighting back, as in taking 3 deep breaths before saying something we regret. It saves us from thirsting in the desert of our lives, but only if we save it first by choosing it now, in this moment of angry words, now, in this moment of clenched thoughts, now, in this moment when we'd rather taste venom but instead we pour love into our cup and bring it to our lips and drink until once again it is only love that makes sense, only love that refills the cup.
Together yearns for
So it's easy to tell you what Dr. King thought about love, but how do we actually put that into action? In 2020, I was part of organizing a protest in Auburn in solidarity with protesters in Minneapolis who are outraged at the needless, brutal death of George Floyd. In what turned out to be one of the largest demonstrations in the area in modern times, nearly 1,000 of us stood on a major street corner in town and raised our voices in outrage at the disproportionate way police force is used in our country. That a man could die merely for suspicion of using a counterfeit bill. But what never ceases to amaze me in the aftermath are the number of people who saw this sort of demonstration as one of hate, as believing that somehow the mere act of choosing to speak out against injustice is hate against who? Against the people who misuse their power. Even since then, I've continued to see many people imply that if you say anything other than you are rainbows and unicorns and a honeypot, you are being hateful. If you dislike certain politicians or their policies, you're being hateful. If you speak up against your neighbor for parking their car and blocking your driveway, you're being hateful. The message, anything other than complete, unconditional acceptance of everyone and everything at all times, is hate. That to not be tolerant of their views is to hate them. Well, I'll tell you what I've told many people many times. The first principle says all people have inherent worth and dignity, not all views. Yes, this is a complete misunderstanding of love. Author Elie Wiesel once wrote that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. In a lesser-known quote, Wiesel clarifies that hate is an action. Hate takes time. Hate takes energy. And even it demands sacrifice. Indifference is nothing. But indifference to hatred is encouraging hatred, and it is justifying hatred. So to not speak up for the mere action of keeping the peace, Wiesel would say, is encouraging the hate that you claim to hate. The way I interpret Wiesel here is that actions can be both loving and hateful, depending on what their purpose is. But a person who chooses to do nothing in hopes of not taking sides or angering someone, the person who chooses nothing over something, even if they think they are being loving, is doing the opposite of what love calls us to do. And it is encouraging hate, even if the person themselves isn't hateful themselves. And what I've always observed is that this obsession with keeping the peace always only applies to what you care about. You never see people who are mad about the backlash against the current political system defending trans people or black people or women. You always see them focusing on me. Our societal obsession with politeness, with civility, then, is not loving. It encourages indifference and, as such, aids hate. This is the problem. People see angry protesters expressing their frustration to the system, and they equate these emotions of anger with hate. But emotions are neither loving nor hateful in and of themselves. They're just emotions. Actions are. As such, the person who seems angry can be much more loving than the hateful person who puts on an air of civility. Indeed, in that protest, I saw so many young activists blossom, become more confident in using their voices to both talk about their experiences and work for change, to make sure everyone has what they need to thrive. And here's the thing. Our actions are loving or hateful, not based on the emotions we feel around them, but based on the action itself. As activist Austin Channing Brown says, I am confused by people who say they love us but are never upset when we're treated unjustly. The two simply cannot coexist. A love that's aloof isn't a love I have any use for. I need a love that is troubled by injustice. While I can't say for sure whether every person there had loving intentions, I can tell you the action itself was loving. Because what we were seeking weren't less rights for some people, but the same rights for everyone. The right to not have to worry that your life might be snuffed out based solely on suspicion of minor crimes. A right so often denied to people of color in the United States, but for which all of us should yearn. Love, then, is about action. This year of resolution at the Unitarian Universalist Association's General Assembly will ask delegates to consider replacing the 7 principles in Article 2 of their bylaws with 7 shared values. Some have objected to these changes as radical, and I couldn't agree with them more. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. The language of the values and their accompanying illustration, which you saw during the Moment for All Ages today, and which is also on one of our bulletin boards in the hallway, ask us to center love as the grounding value of all that we do as Unitarian Universalists. This is a tall order, for as Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, the former president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, once reflected, this centering of love asks us to consider that no one is outside the circle of love. If this is a case, this will mean that our faith is one that asks us to consider what is loving action at all times. What would love do now, as one of the questions in our Soul Matters packet asked this month? And if we can't depend merely on our emotions as to what is loving or not, then this sort of love demands that I engage in self-reflection as to how I will be in the world and how my actions will affect others as well as myself. It demands that I use the privilege that I have to make sure everyone gets what they need. This is a moral imperative. How will we live if we are to live loving lives? Now, I'm not going to be able to give you a formula here today. I'm sorry. And this isn't to say that every one of us, myself included, are loving all the time. We are, after all, only human. And I don't know how to make sure I'd never make a mistake. But it is a reminder that love can be liberating, that an action taken in a loving way might just be the beginning of saving the world. For as Rosemary Watola Tromer says in our second reading this morning, like every other day, day to day, it is apparent that only love will save us. What would your life be like if love was at the center? What would it be like if you had to contend with how loving each of your actions are? This Martin Luther King Day, as our faith considers moving towards an imperative that asks us to consider how we live our lives, I find myself asking if I'm living a loving life. I find it easier, honestly, when it comes to big events like a Black Lives Matter protests. But everyday life can be a bit more difficult to discern, and I find myself reflecting on my life and actions and how loving they are. And I would like to think this is the message Dr. King would have hoped we'd get from his life and legacy, that we can choose to live our lives in a loving way that can build beloved community, that can make the world a better place, and that indifference will lead to a less loving world in the end. So may our actions be those that encourage the growth of love in ways we can yet scarcely imagine, and may Unitarian Universalism always be a faith that centers love. May it be so.
We extinguish this flame, but not our commitment to welcome radically, love boldly, grow spiritually, and serve courageously. This we do because we envision a beloved community filled with compassion, helping all to thrive in a just world. I'd like you to invite you to rise in body or spirit now and join us in singing our closing hymn, hymn 95 in the gray hymnal, There Is More Love Somewhere.
Our benediction is by Eric Williams. We all emerge from, dwell within, and are transformed by and called back to love. May your mind be humbled before this mystery. May your heart grow hopeful by it. May you be sustained by this love
always. Amen. Blessed be, and go in peace.